Going to go ahead and get started because it is noon and I want to make sure we respect everyone's time and stay on schedule. So first of all, I of course want to thank you and welcome you all. And thank you so much for volunteering as mentors this year. We are so grateful for your commitment to our students and to this program. I am Andrea Hansen, Assistant Director of Events and Alumni Relations for the college, and I help run the CSE Mentor Program with my colleague Joelle Larson. Today's discussion will feature 4 mentors, 2 of whom have mentored for many years and 2 who were new last year, sharing their advice, their tips, and how to make a successful relationship with your student partner. We also have a special guest today, mentor and CSE Alumni Society board member, Alyssa Sandholm, who will be our moderator. So a few housekeeping notes before we get started. If you would prefer to listen to today's webinar by phone, you can call in using the instructions on your screen, and these were also in the confirmation email that you received. Please enter any questions you have for our panelists in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. This is where we will be compiling questions for the audience portion of the panel discussion. So please put anything in there that you want our panelists to address. You can also comment on other people's questions and upvote. And we ask that you upvote questions you'd like to have answered so we know which ones are kind of the most popular with our attendees today. We are recording today's webinar and we will share the link to the video with all the registrants following the event. It takes us about a week or so to get that video finalized and ready to share. And finally, there is live auto transcript on. If you'd like to hide the transcript, you can do so by clicking the live transcript button and choosing to hide the subtitles. Okay, I think that's everything. So I am going to go ahead and pass it over to Alyssa to get us started today.
Hi, everyone, and welcome again. Like Andrea had mentioned, my name is Alyssa Sandholm, and I am a CSE mentor and as well as a member of the CSE Alumni Society board. On that board, I serve as a recording secretary on the executive team, as well as a member of the student engagement committee. And that committee helps facilitate this CSE mentorship program. So on behalf of that committee and that board, I just want to formally welcome you all and thank you for participating in this webinar as well as in this mentorship program. And I myself have been, I graduated from the U from CSE as a biomedical engineering graduate in 2014. And I have been a mentor with this program for about 4 years now. So with that, I'm going to introduce all of our individual panelists. So we have Kelton Barr. Kelton graduated from the U in 1978 with a master's in hydrogeology. He has been a hydrogeologist in practice for over 47 years and currently works as a consultant. Kelton has mentored with the CSE Mentor Program for more than 9 years. So thank you, Kelton, for being a part of this program today. And then we have Kathy Cray. Kathy graduated from the U in 1992 with a BS in civil engineering and emphasizing in structural. She's been a structural engineer for 24 years and currently works as a project manager for Larson Engineering in White Bear Lake, Minnesota. Kathy has participated in the CSE Mentor Program for 7 years and has also participated in the CEGE Summer Mentor Program this year. Thanks, Kathy, for being a part of this program today. We also have Ryan Falls. So Ryan graduated from the U in 2018. He was studying computer science and management and went on to work as a software engineer in the data science group at 3M in Minnesota. This is his 2nd year as a mentor. And Ryan also engages with CSE students at career fairs and campus information sessions, recruiting for 3M. Thanks, Ryan. We're glad you're here. And then we have Steve Sun. Steve is a software development engineer at Amazon in Silicon Valley. So he graduated with a MS degree in computer science from the U in 2014. And this is his 2nd year as a mentor with CSE. And he is a proud lifetime member of the U's alumni community and seeks to contribute back in any way possible. So thank you all for being a part of this program. We're excited to hear from you guys. So with that, we can go ahead and jump into our questions. So we'll start off with kind of a generic question here of what have you guys learned from being a mentor? Let's start with Ryan.
Thanks, Alyssa. Thanks for the great introduction there. Like Alyssa mentioned, this is my second year as a mentor. And my first year, I learned a lot. I'd say the first one was how to be patient, and how to balance teaching someone what I know while letting them kind of guide the direction of where they want the relationship to go. Learning how to communicate with someone who looks up to you. It's not about telling them how to do things one way. It's really about opening their mind and opening doors for them. I really got out of the relationship also thinking critically about professionalism and my own career. Am I practicing what I'm preaching? And really, I think, another one would be learning that, the time that we volunteer really makes a difference. And at the beginning of the mentorship, my student, he was thinking he wouldn't get an internship, he missed the boat and he wasn't like super confident in himself. And we really worked hard to turn that around and ended up landing him an internship. And that was really rewarding. I think that was one of the biggest surprising things was how rewarding it was. So I really enjoyed you get out what you put in. And I think that is very rewarding. So thank you.
Great. Yeah, I'm glad to hear that you've had a positive experience yourself as a mentor. And that's definitely something to keep in mind for everyone is that it's a two-way relationship. So that's great. Kathy, can we hear from you?
Yeah, good morning. I've been doing mentoring for quite a few years. Volunteering is one of my passions. And so mentoring is an opportunity for me to give of my time and talents and to share with new engineers. One of the things I've kind of realized that when I'm talking to the engineers, when I have them in my office and I'm explaining what I do, I've realized that how much more I know about engineering when you explain it. And it just gives you the opportunity to really think about what you know. The opportunity to create really good relationships with, in my case, the younger engineers that are coming into the business. And it's just very rewarding for me to be able to give of my time and talents.
Great, thank you. Next, we'll hear from Steve.
Yes, I really echo with what Kathy and Ryan said. So the best part that I get from this is I think to learn something is the best way is by teaching it. So first, I feel like I learned how to listen. Every student is quite different. As a mentor, my first job is really to listen to them, get to know them, build a good relationship, and learn their needs and wants from this mentor program instead of just lecturing them on my experiences and knowledge. I have a very good student last year who had very similar experiences as Ryan's. He was struggling whether he can get an internship or not, but eventually he did get an internship and he turned that internship into a full-time return offer. So I was very excited and I feel it's very rewarding as well.
Great. Yeah, I love the focus on listening. I think that's super important for any communication. Yeah, and let's have any words from Kelton.
Sure. I'll underscore all of you. It really helps you become a better listener. And these students are coming into the program as mentorees probably because they have a need, something that's unfilled. And it might be on the surface, but you have to learn how to listen between the lines to find out what the underlying problems or stresses might be. Nobody really comes into the university from the same direction. They're all coming in from different angles and have different backgrounds, and you'll learn about that as you talk to them. But it's a great way to to pay it forward. And it really does help you learn to become just a better listener all around.
Great. Thank you guys all for answering that. Let's move on to the next question. So how do you approach the beginning of the relationship? Let's start with Kathy this time.
When I meet my students for the first time and have our first discussion, I like to have them kind of lead and let me know what they want to get from the relationship. However, a lot of students don't necessarily know what they want or what they need. So I will usually offer suggestions based on my skill set, what I am able to offer them. And making just kind of going off of ideas of what I've done in the past with other students, what's worked and what hasn't. And then I am probably more proactive in my communication with my students, just because they tend to get busy and the mentor program might fall off their radar once in a while. So especially if I know I have some time, that'd be a good time to meet, or I have a field trip that might be good for them, then I'll be more proactive about initiating the communication than the students might be. But I definitely stress to them to take advantage of using me for whatever they can get out of me, because that's what we're here for, is to help them out. And sometimes they forget that, or they get too busy to use us.
That's great. I think it's really great to be really proactive, especially at first. So I appreciate that. Next, let's have Ryan.
Thank you. Yeah, I really like your point about initiating communication, Kathy, because, we're probably much more comfortable with the prospect of, reaching out and things like that. And that's one thing that I definitely would suggest as well. So for me, how I approach the beginning of the relationship with my mentee. So after getting to know, I can speak about last year, at least after getting to know him at the beginning, I kind of took stock of what his interests were. And I kind of tried to plan out what things we might want to explore throughout the upcoming year. So for example, my mentee and I were in software, or are in software and computer science. So we talked about things, that maybe he didn't know about the industry, tried to plan out going through different disciplines to help him uncover maybe what he was more or less interested in as he kind of approached the job market. And again, he expressed interest in becoming better at interviewing, so I made sure to plan for that, resume prep, things like that. So basically the upfront planning after kind of gauging their interests, and I think Kelton mentioned kind of what voids they need to fill as they kind of go in and transition into the next step in their career. And I prepared, topics that maybe I could approach every time we met. I would kind of have not an agenda, but sort of a topic for the evening, and that seemed to work well. So, I think I'll carry a lot of that forward this year because it seemed to work pretty well for me last year. Thank you.
Great, thanks for that. Steve, do you have any, advice on this subject?
Sure. Yeah, I guess I really agree with both Cassie and Ryan. So first, I think the very first meeting with each mentee is the most exciting because you are basically getting to know a new friend. And then from that point onwards, I basically let the students drive all of our one-on-one meetings. I usually ask the students to set up an agenda ahead of the meeting. And I ask them to set up, to open a Google Doc and share it with me and grant me only common access instead of added access. And I want them to be the main author of the doc while I'm just providing comments. I want to let them prioritize that what they wanted to discuss first, because they know themselves first, just like Kathy said. They know what they wanted to learn and understand at that moment. So I'm open to let them take advantage of me to get the most out of this relationship. Yeah, I would say that, yes.
Great. Yeah, I like the Google Doc idea. I hadn't heard that before. Thanks for that. And then Kelton?
Yeah, I guess the most important thing at first is establishing trust, and I usually will start by just and make sure that you're also being very non-judgmental, that they feel comfortable with you, that they can open up, and I usually try and find out, well, what's your background? You know, kind of go back to when they were kids. What did they like to do? Where did they live? Rural, city. There's a lot of variations there, and then how they proceeded through to becoming a university student and with the major they have. And usually they're just kind of new to the idea of this major. It isn't fitting comfortably yet for a lot of them. And so a lot of what they're going to be wanting to know is this right for me? And so getting their background and getting to know where they're coming from, what their dreams are, can kind of help you steer them and counsel them and give them advice.
Great. Yeah, I really like the deep dive approach, getting to know them as a person. That's helpful. Let's move on to our next question. So how do you lean on your own networks when mentoring? This time, let's start with Kathy.
I use my networks a lot. One of the big things I do is my husband is actually in the construction industry also. He works for a large construction company. And so one of the big things I do with my students is I will take them to a construction site visit, so then they can see what they're designing in school. And just, it's amazing how much you can learn being on a construction site if that's what the direction your career is going to take you. So I use my husband as much as I can for that. I also lean on my coworkers, especially the younger ones. Since I've been away from college for a fair number of years, I don't always necessarily remember what it was like to be in college, what it was like to look for my first job. So the younger engineers in my office are good resources for that. I also lean on the coworkers who go to the career fairs and the ones who are reviewing resumes and interviewing students for potential jobs. So I will usually give my students' resumes to those coworkers to have them review it and give it another set of eyes. So I can't stress enough how much to use the other people around you, because I don't know everything, but there's other people that I do know that can help the students in other ways.
That's great. Thank you. Next, Kelton, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I guess it's partly that as a hydrogeologist, there haven't been a lot of geology mentorees. And so I've usually had some type of an engineer that's been assigned to me. And I had a minor in civil engineering, and I certainly have worked in a lot of engineering firms. And just with time, I've gotten to know quite a few people. So yeah, it usually, they're interested in seeing what is it like? What is this kind of engineering like, or this kind of area of science? And often it's not in your experience at all. So it's really looking to your contacts, looking to, in fact, I've used other mentors in other years that have been in a completely different area. And often the students have not just one narrow area that they're wanting to go into. It's maybe this, or maybe that, or maybe this, and they're still trying to settle down in what exactly they want to do with the rest of their life. And so trying to find people that are in those different areas is usually very helpful to them. I also especially for those that I've had a number of female students as well, and finding professionals that they can talk to who are women is usually something that opens another door for them, and they can ask more questions about that perspective that I really can't answer. So yeah, it's very important to know your limitations and reach out and find who can really help this student with their curiosities.
Great, thanks for that. And then Steve.
Sure, yes. I also heavily lean on my network to help my students. For example, I guess that's one of the main reasons that many of my students who picked me as their mentor, because they see where I am working. For example, if they want to work for Amazon, so if after conversations, like a few conversations with the student, with the mentee, I feel confident enough, I would be very happy to submit a referral for my mentee to any position that he or she is interested in. And also, if I feel super confident and passionate about this mentee, I wouldn't hesitate to ask my network. Many of them are U of M alumni, my former classmates who graduated but worked for other companies like Facebook and Google. So I would ask them to help submit a referral for my mentee. And also, I would be happy to use my interview skills because I am an interviewer inside Amazon. I'm happy to share what is expected from the interview, from their upcoming on-site, so the students could really benefit from this. Yeah.
Great. Yeah, I think it's super important to even just show that this is how you might utilize a network, because I feel like students may not even be in that position yet. So all great, valuable uses of your network. Appreciate you guys sharing that. Let's go on to the next question. So what opportunities do you see to have a mainly virtual mentoring relationship? What other opportunities do you see as a result of that? Let's start with Steve this time.
Sure. I think I view it as, although it's kind of challenging, I still view it as an opportunity because more and more interviews are becoming or being converted into virtual because of this COVID-19 thing. And actually, as a long distance mentor, as Alyssa mentioned in the beginning, I'm based out of California. So I have never met any of my mentees in person. So last year was entirely virtual. So it's just very natural for me for making it virtual. And number one is thanks to this COVID-19 disease, more and more companies have converted their traditional on-site interviews. They usually fly candidates on-site to do the interview. Now everything has become virtual. It's quite struggling in the beginning to get used to it. I know it's very difficult to draw, like say, an architecture diagram on the whiteboard if you are not in person. If you're face-to-face, that's super easy, but there are software tools to help the candidates, the students, to achieve something similar. So just to practice in advance. Another thing is that it's possible that the shift could be permanent in many ways. As you see, a lot of companies like Square, Facebook, Twitter, they have announced the possibility of working from home permanently. So learning to talk and work with people virtually becomes a very essential skill in today's world. So instead of resisting to this shift, I think we can embrace it as the workforce is becoming more and more distributed. That's my thought.
Yeah, I love that. Who knows what'll happen, right? Might as well embrace it. Next, Ryan, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, thanks. I would really echo everything Steve said. I know we work in the same industry, the software industry, so really that's the direction that industry is heading, with everything being virtual communications from interviews to actual day-to-day work. So I think preparing for that is going to really be beneficial. I think about last year. So last year for me was sort of half and half. The first semester we were in person, and that went well. But when we had to switch to virtual for the spring semester because of COVID and other things, my student went back to his hometown. That also worked just as well. Actually, I would say that it worked better in some ways because by that point we had gotten to know each other a little bit better. You know, we were, instead of doing more of like the formal email back and forth, we were actually texting each other. We were able to set up more flexible, you know, meetings, like kind of, you know, less planning, didn't have to drive anywhere. So we were able to hop on a Skype. It was Skype last year, Zoom this year. We were able to hop on a call really quick and have a good chat. So I think, yeah, that's a really big advantage. And yeah, I think that is, like Steve said, going to be a good way to prepare for communicating for the students going forward, because we don't know what it's going to be. It's probably going to be virtual in a lot of ways. So I think that's a big deal. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you for that. It's also kind of convenient when we have October snowstorms, just saying. Let's see. Kathy, do you have any thoughts on virtual relationships?
Yes, I actually participated in the CEGE mentor program this summer, which was entirely virtual, which was, you know, new for me. I do like to see my mentees in person when at all possible. One of the things we did do is we had Zoom meetings, and I like to have the students come to my office to see what I do, see my drawings, see my calculations and everything. But what I was able to do on Zoom was share my computer screen with them, and then they could see my drawings on my computer screen. We could get into my AutoCAD program, some of my structural software programs, so I could show them some of the designs we can do and some of the things we're doing with our software. So that was very handy, and that worked very, very well, much better than I thought it would. We were also able to look at his resume on the computer and give feedback that way. It was really nice to see him through the video, to, you know, see what he looks like and see his facial expressions, and just get to know him as a person visually, because on the phone and email just isn't enough. I still do hope to try and get together in person, socially distancing, maybe outside, things like that. So, but it's doable, much more doable than I thought it would be.
Yeah, I like the examples of taking advantage of the technology and being able to share information a little bit easier. I think there's definitely some advantages there, depending on what you're working on. Great, thank you all for that. The next question is, what is the most important thing to remember as a new mentor? Let's start with Ryan, since I think you're our most recent new mentor.
Sure, I might have a couple examples. I think my main one, kind of like I mentioned at the beginning, is, you know, be a good listener. That's really what it's all about. It's going to be able to put you in a position to help the best way you can. And I would say every answer that you give, if they have a question, they're going to have a lot of questions. Remain positive in all of your answers. You know, be encouraging and thoughtful when answering deep questions, because a lot of it is deep life stuff. You know, I personally remember really well what it was like looking at what life after college was going to be, you know, and it was a big uncertainty for me, a lot of anxiety around it. So keeping that in mind, kind of putting yourself in their shoes and knowing that your mentee takes, you know, their success very seriously. That's why they're in the program. And just remember that you're being looked up to, and you could be making a very big impact on this student and giving them some really important advice when they need it most. So kind of putting yourself in their shoes and really thinking and listening to what they have to say. Thanks.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. I know for myself, when I first started mentoring about 4-ish years ago, I was concerned that I wouldn't have much to offer, but I think that new mentor is almost a really nice appeal, because it's all still fresh. You just did all the things that they're trying to do. So yeah, I think it's a great thing to keep in mind. Kathy, what do you recommend for people as a new mentor?
I do want to stress to use your network, use the people around you, because you're not going to know everything and you may not be able to help with certain things that the student would like help on. But also the other big thing is try and create a personal as well as a professional relationship. Some of these students that I've mentored, you know, they almost seem like my kids. When it's all done, one gal I mentored for 2 years and we had a fabulous relationship. And when I went out to visit California a few years after our relationship, then we got together while I was out there. You know, it gives the kids or the students a safe person that they can talk to. You want to be that person that they can trust, that they can come to you when they're struggling and not be afraid to ask you questions and ask you for aid, and you don't want them to be embarrassed for anything that they're unsure about. So just relationships are huge in business and life. So to me, the most important thing is just to create a good, strong, trusting relationship.
Yeah, I think that's a great place to start, definitely. And I think that's probably one of the hardest things to do, right? So that's great. Next, Steve, do you have any advice for new mentors?
Sure, yeah, thanks. I totally agree with Kathy on the building a very strong, trusting relationship, because many of the students, they have many options to choose. The reason they choose you is because of your background or whatever, but still in your first meeting with the student, you want to build a very good, trusting relationship. That's the key to all of the future conversations. And also I agree with Ryan. As we said in the very beginning, I think understanding the mentor's needs is very critical to build a very successful mentor-mentee relationship. Instead of just what you as a mentor wanted to coach them or simply share your experiences. This would ideally yield the best results in my mind. That's why we have this one-on-one mentor program instead of a group coach. Yeah, that's for me.
Great, yeah, thank you. And then Kelton, do you have, what's the most important thing to remember as a new mentor?
The U is a big place, and a lot of them have been going through classes that are large, and it can be a pretty impersonal place. And this mentor role is your opportunity to be the person that you wish you had as a student. You know, someone that you could rely on as your friend, as your advisor, someone that's non-judgmental and on your side, so that you can ask whatever your questions are. And they can be stupid questions, and questions you're kind of afraid to ask at first, and eventually they'll get around to those. They aren't really stupid, of course, but they may seem so to the person. So yeah, just be what you wish you had as someone to bounce things off of and help you through. And if you do that, you'll have done a great job.
I love that. Be who you wish you had. Well, sounds like we're interested in, you know, kind of creating this trusting environment and really just getting to know and listen to your mentee. Yeah, I think that's all really great points and great advice. So thank you all. Yeah, so with that, those are all of our prepared questions. So I just wanted to thank you all for answering those. And then I believe we'll open up to any audience questions that you guys have submitted with the Q&A function. So please, if you have any questions, go ahead and insert them in the Q&A box. We're happy to answer them. We do have time for them. And upvote the ones that you like. And don't be afraid to ask them. But yeah, so looks like we already have a couple questions submitted. So we'll get started with those. So our first question from the audience is, what challenges do panelists foresee with COVID-19 limiting in-person interactions and potential internship and job opportunities? So how can mentors best guide students through an uncertain employment market? Maybe let's start with, I guess, Steve, do you have any initial thoughts on that? Or anyone else, if you want to jump in? Maybe let's start with Steve.
Sure. Yeah, I feel this COVID-19 thing is apparently having a very huge impact on everything in our lives, both work and personal life. I think we need to let the students understand this shift could be lasting much longer than we anticipated. So just be prepared. If you think next year, if you're looking for internship or jobs next summer, but still you might be getting interviews, because many companies, they start interviewing very early on. So the interviews which are about to happen right now, they're still virtual. So I would ask them to get well prepared and practice in advance how to use these softwares to draw diagrams using these softwares and how to do screen share. That's my thought. Yeah, just embrace them.
Okay, great. Yeah, I appreciate that. Does anyone else have any ideas or have an answer to what they think some other challenges that we could be dealing with, or how we could overcome this crazy time that we're in? Kelton, you want to go?
Yeah, one of the things that I've encouraged my students to do, my mentorees, is to do informational interviews. And usually, if you're doing an informational interview, well, that's not really looking for a job. It's really finding out what's the field like, what's the company like, and people are a lot more open to, give them a half hour of their time to do that. Everybody is new at having to do this virtually. And so this is your opportunity to kind of jump in there and, or they can be jumping in there and asking their questions. It's something that everybody is learning about. And so the walls aren't up yet, I don't think. So there you are.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. We're all trying to navigate this, and totally fair to be asking questions. And I think it's a lot of what you are comfortable with too. I mean, I think it's good to ask each, if you're interviewing for a new job or something, understanding how is that company dealing with COVID, or, what would you feel comfortable with them, what interactions they're taking or precautions they're taking. And yeah, it's always a great move to ask questions and be as informed as you can. Anyone else have any thoughts on? Yeah, Kathy, let's go with you.
I would think that, we could be a practice dummies for them, in the sense that practice doing Zoom calls with them, and just so they can get comfortable being on camera and talking to someone, that they don't know, or regarding a job interview and stuff. But, letting us be that opportunity to practice the skills that they need in this new virtual world.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. That's exactly what we're here for. Perfect, thanks. Ryan, do you have anything? You don't have to if you don't want.
Yeah, I suppose I should say something, even though the last three answers were great. I don't have much else to add besides, maybe giving your own personal experiences on what you've done as a professional to become more comfortable with the whole work from home situation, how you strike a work-life balance, what that all looks like to you, and kind of what they can anticipate going forward, just in terms of being comfortable with the prospect that this could be something that goes on for the foreseeable future. But all the other answers really echo what I would say and more.
Yeah, I think the work-life balance is a great reminder too. because who knows what things are going to look like, right? So perfect. Thanks for that. Looks like we're having some questions about how often you typically meet with your mentee per month. The program does formally encourage twice per month. However, I would say that's not a concrete, you must meet in person twice per month. It's really meant to be what is flexible for you and your mentee, especially with COVID. And I think for me personally as a mentor, maybe I'll start answering this and you guys can think of how you would like to answer this also. But I do definitely shoot for twice a month, but I would say it ebbs and flows, certainly depending on your student schedules. Sometimes when they have a lot of midterms, they're not going to want to be doing this, worrying about preparing these meetings and having to schedule that in along with their study time and things. I do personally open myself up for email communication or even texting sometimes too, if that's helpful. Or we might kind of pivot and fill in rather than an in-person meeting. Twice per month, we'll do one in-person meeting, or maybe we'll review a document like a resume or something, which can be done virtually. So I think there's a lot of flexibility there, but we just really want to encourage that people are continuing with the program throughout the time. That's really the goal of the twice per month recommendation. Do you guys, Kelton, do you want to, how often do you meet with your mentee?
Yeah, I basically let them set the tempo. They're grown people, and so this is their initiative, their thing, and so I let them set the tempo, the number of meetings. If it gets to be close to a month since we've met, I'll probably just send them an email or a text that just what's up and want to get together, and that usually guilts them into having another meeting and keeps the thing going. And it's easy to have things slide. So, but it isn't meant to be a pressure thing for them. They've got a lot of things on their plate. Most of them are working, so that it's hard to fit in with all the classes and work and all. So anyways, that's my point.
Yeah, I think that's great. Anyone else have any thoughts on that? Kathy, go ahead.
In past years, I've tried to meet with my students in person at least once a month. And then we did a lot of email and texting in addition to that. This year, I think I'd like to at least do a Zoom meeting. So we're having a video conference at least once a month to touch base with them. And then still try and organize some, if possible, some in-person meetings. But I think in face-to-face at least once a month is good to touch base.
Great, yeah. And I think the twice per month, a point of contact can be an email. I think just trying to keep as much contact as possible and keep the program and the momentum going is the goal. So anyone else? Or it sounds like, yeah, go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, I think I saw on the Q&A box, the question was, the student didn't think that they wanted to meet so frequently because they may think that, they're taking too much of our time. I would say that, I would echo Alyssa and Kelton when they say, make yourself available at all times, but also let them kind of drive. But I would also say, make it clear to them that they should have the freedom to reach out to you at any time. So they don't feel uncomfortable if they think, they're reaching out too frequently or anything like that. I would actually encourage that. For myself, last year, I think we stuck with every other week frequency. I don't know how much I should be talking this year, but actually my current student is on the other side of the world right now. He's in Vietnam. So we're scheduling like weekly, very like shorter weekly meetings. So the frequency is up to them. And whenever you guys can, I would encourage, yeah, making your schedules work together. And if that means more or less frequent, that's okay.
Yeah, and I think that's a great reminder to try and be available as much as you can. But I do also think there's just setting those expectations up front is a really great place to start. And just letting them know, you know, I am available so often. It doesn't have to be all the time, you know, whatever you're comfortable with too. So great. Thanks, guys. Let's go to the next question. Do you or should you address finances with your mentee, given that it is often not talked about in college? And I know this can be kind of a taboo subject. Anyone have any thoughts on that? Kathy, do you mind maybe starting us off?
Yeah, I'm trying to think back if I've actually talked about that with my students in the past. I think it's okay to give them an idea of what your salary is, or if you know what starting salaries are in the industry, just to give them an idea. You know, I don't necessarily know what starting salaries might be now since I've been in the industry for so long, but you know, if you do know that information, I think it is good to share with them.
Yeah, and I think for me personally, I guess I haven't necessarily had this specifically come up, but I think even maybe telling them how you would approach looking that up, or, you know, maybe some resources for where you might find that information might even be a valuable way to address that. If you don't, and I think this is totally what you feel comfortable with. If you feel comfortable sharing, you know, if they ask you specifically, kind of up to you. But otherwise, if you don't, I would say totally it would be okay to just kind of divert them to this is maybe an avenue, you know, glassdoor.com or something where you could investigate that on your own. Anyone else have any thoughts on that? Kelton, yeah, let's go ahead.
Yeah, again, this is one of those areas that you want to be open. If that's something that's worrying them or they're curious about, help them answer those questions. Sometimes it can be about their personal finances now as a student, and that's another labyrinth to go through. Which direct, you know, what loans, what work study, how much time diverted to part-time work. These are all things that you can help them with. Maybe not necessarily have answers, but talk it through with them. And you could be another sounding board for them at the very least. And as needed, you can be looking for what resources are there at the university for them to talk to that would better answer than you could.
Definitely. Yeah, that's a great idea. I'm sure the university probably does have some sort of avenue for that type of information. So that's a great suggestion. Any other thoughts on that? Yeah, go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, as a semi-recent student the last couple of years, I know this was definitely something on my mind when I was looking at full-time. What is a competitive salary? How do I, potentially negotiate if I'm interested in doing that? How do I pay off my student loans? If how do I approach that? What does that look like? How did I pay off my student loans? What's the what should I expect when it comes to that? So I know those are very real questions. And yeah, just giving strategies on how I approach them or how other folks that I know approached could definitely be useful to them. But I don't think I ever said any sort of specific numbers, or even if anybody asked, I'm not sure what I would do. Probably something like the Glassdoor approach.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Steve, do you have any advice relative to this subject?
I really echo everybody just mentioned their ideas. So I would say I'll just be myself. If I know any things that they ask, I'll just give my very authentic answers. If I were in that situation, this is what I would do. If I don't know the answer, I'll just guide them to blah, 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 these resources that they can turn to. And as Kelton mentioned, they are grown-up people, so they should own their decisions. They should make the judgment call by themselves. We can just provide the resources that we know of. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's great. Let's go on to the next question then. So someone asked, I would love to show my student the work that I do, but it is mainly confidential. Have any of you run into this issue? And if so, how have you gotten around that? I guess if any of you are bringing in students, like maybe into your work, I don't know if you have to have them sign an NDA or something like that. I personally have not had an issue with this. I think a lot of bigger companies might have you kind of agree to a non-disclosure agreement just as part of like the check-in process as a visitor. But I think, yeah, I guess that's kind of a tough one. I would maybe consider reaching out to someone else from your network, maybe in a little more open situation, or maybe even talking to someone at HR at your company to see kind of if that's even a possibility to have someone come in and have a discussion about it or to see stuff. Anyone else have any thoughts? Yeah, Kelton, go for it.
Yeah, a lot of our areas just don't have that problem. It's not that sensitive, but where you do have, if you are working on something that you can't show them because it's confidential, well, like you said, the non-disclosure agreement is often a way that formally they can agree to be quiet about it, and you can show them. I know my son had that interviewing in aerospace engineering, going to places that, oh, this is something that the public doesn't know about. So he had to sign an NDA to just walk through the plant. So it's something that you probably can get around, and like you said, Alyssa, maybe it's somebody else that they should talk to, or at worst, or pull out something that's less sensitive and show them that. So.
Yeah, thank you. That's a great addition. Yeah, I think that's the end of our audience questions. So thank you, panelists, for all of your great insight and responses. And I know that I found that really informative myself. Some of those ideas are new to me too, which is great. But with that, I will pass this over to Joelle. So take it away.
Thanks so much, Alyssa, and all of our panelists for sharing your great ideas and suggestions and advice. And for the person who asked about the confidentiality, I know some of our mentors who work at Honeywell have experienced that. So we might be able to connect you with one of them. We'll email you offline and see if we can find you someone you can talk to specifically about that issue. Okay, I'm gonna share my screen and go through just a couple final announcements, and then we'll let you out onto this glorious day. So hopefully everyone can see my screen here. Just a couple of resources we'd like to share before we let you go. The first place to go is always the CSE Mentor Program Mentor Materials page. It says csc.umn.edu/mentor materials. We'll be putting the link to all of these resources in the follow-up email that will have the link to the recording as well, so no need to scramble to write them down. But this has our handbook, it's got virtual meeting tips, the mentoring phases, mentoring skills, links to past webinars and panel discussions. It's a place where we throw anything we think might be useful to you. So if you have a question, that's always a great place to go first. We also have a university and university-wide and college-wide resources page located at z.umn.edu/CSE campus resources. And that has links to a variety of resources across the U. So for example, the financial aid office is linked there, which might help for folks facing financial related questions, resources for international students, mental health resources, academic success resources, and more can be found there. And finally, we'd encourage you to join the CSE Mentor Program's LinkedIn group, especially if you're someone who's been hearing today about using your network to connect your student to other folks, and you think to yourself, I'm not sure if I have the right folks to connect my student to. Join the LinkedIn group and you'd be able to look at other mentors and what their careers and career paths have been. And I'm sure any of them would be happy to talk to your students. So it's a way to connect your student to other mentors, to do some networking yourself, to encourage your student to take a look at what maybe other mentors with their major are doing for their careers. So please feel free to use that resource. And finally, we'd like to share a couple of upcoming events and make sure you know what's coming up with respect to the mentor program. You should have already received a couple of invitations to the CSE Mentor Program Kickoff event, which is taking place next Tuesday, October 27th at 7 p.m. And it'll be a great way to get off on the right foot with your student. And we'll share some more expectations around the program, but also more tips and tricks from a couple of mentoring peers from last year. On November 19th, we'll have our first monthly Mentor Pairs event. This one is going to be around elevator pitches, and it will be presented by Ken Tao, who's a longtime mentor in our program, as well as a recruiter for Boston Scientific. And he'll share some information, and then there will be a chance to go into breakout rooms, so the students can practice and mentors can give feedback. And then finally, we have another mentors only event coming up on December 1st. It'll be presented by someone from the Career Center, explaining to all of you what the Career Center has to offer to students, so that as you get these questions and you're not sure how best to answer them or who to direct them to, you'll know what the Career Center offers and can direct your student there as that makes sense. And with that, I'd like to thank all of you for your time, and once again, thank all of our panelists and Alyssa for all the wonderful information. Just a reminder that we'll be sending a link to this recording out, as Andrea said, probably next week once we're able to get it up on the college's YouTube channel. And that email will also include links to all the resource materials and events that I've just mentioned. And in the meantime, or at any time throughout the year, if you ever have questions, problems, can't get in touch with your student, anything that you'd like to talk through with us, Andrea and I are always available and happy to help you. Our contact information is on the screen. And we include it in our monthly e-newsletters and pretty much every communication you get from our program. So do not hesitate to reach out to us. We want you all to have the best year possible, and we're happy to help in any way we can to make sure that that happens. So with that, thank you again for attending, and I hope you all have a wonderful year this year mentoring your students. And thanks again for giving your time.